What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Coach Ken from Giving It a Try. Just another quickly athlete update, weekly talk, just short form content I like to throw out there. Again, keeping this public because I have been getting very good feedback just from people that aren't coached athletes. And a lot of it does apply to a lot of people that do follow along with this channel. It's week number 28, 2025. What do we have going on locally here is Jamesport Triathlon coming up. We have Musselman 70.3. We have quite a few athletes, coached athletes taking care of that. And then soon enough, before you know it, right around the corner after this weekend, we're going to be having Lake Placid happen with another few coached athletes headed up there. But this week's focus really is on that bulk of athletes that are prepping for Musselman 70.3. The hay is in the barn, so to speak, for that race. The weekend training is over. We're heading into a deep taper week. And really, what does that mean for everybody? For the coached athletes on the coaching app that we have, I keep everybody in a separate section for that that's doing that race, and I'll feed in some content as I'm finding it through the resources and stuff that I have as far as what's going on there. We just posted the athlete schedule today. We're already looking at water temperature, which last time I checked on lakemonster.com, water temp was 70 degrees, looking awesome. Too soon to look at the weather. Don't be stressed about things like that. Just expect it is summer. It could be hot. It could be rainy. It could be all the above. We never know what we're going to get on race day. But that's why we train through these things. We remain resilient, and we will get it done on race day. Just remember, whatever happens outside controlling the controllables, right? Weather is something we can't control. But everybody out there on race day will have to inevitably go through that. So it just depends on who is those that can triumph through that weather a little bit more than others. So do what you got to do for that. But at this point, what should we be doing? Like, the bulk of the training is done. I had one of my athletes ask this week, because there is, for my athletes, they are basically doing something most days this week, but it's a significant decrease in volume. It is still keeping with some short intensity to keep the muscles firing and the body well primed. Because I've seen taper go a multitude of different ways with athletes in the past, where they don't taper, and we'll get into that shortly, or they taper too much thinking taper means nothing. And that could actually, you could show up on race day kind of stale and not prepared as you should be. If this isn't your A race, so to speak, if I have a few athletes that are doing this race or have just recently done 70.3 events in lead up to, say, their Ironman race, their A race. So this is a stop along the journey this year, if you will, for those bigger goals, those bigger races. For them, how do I structure that? Typically for somebody like that, even if this isn't looking for a top performance for 70.3 or an A race, this is just a prep and test among, the journey to get to Ironman. So I always recommend maybe getting a 70.3 in along the way. There is, we still put in a proper taper beforehand, just as anybody else would. What I like to see is fueling your tank up still before race day, not training into it on a half or an empty tank through training, because inevitably a 70.3, and this can even pertain to a 13.1 leading into a 26.2 event in training, like when you're prepped for that and you're doing this race as a prep for it, is we still want to have a good day, even if you're telling yourself, well, I'm not going to go out there and crush it. I'm not going to race, at top performance that I do. Unless you are so disciplined and so dialed in and have a specific, like, real zone 2 metric that you're going to stick to on race day, like legit, maybe then we can train into it a little bit more. But you know what happens out there on race day. You get feeling good on the bike. You start to push a little bit. You get in the run, and then maybe you want to push the last 10K because, like, you're just feeling good out there. Maybe you push a little bit too much. So if we show up really without a full fuel tank, is we may have some issues that may arise. We may dig ourselves into a really big hole, because if we're going into that weekend with a lot of stress, without a proper taper, and then we put an extra load on our body outside of the amount that we should be week after week, we may dig ourselves in a hole on the back end of that. And what I mean is, you may fall into a deep pile of fatigue afterwards, where you're going to start to miss sessions or miss hitting the intensities on the sessions in the prep for this A race. So if we can just kind of fill the tank a little bit the week going into race day, you're still putting in a real big effort out there. No matter how well you perform on your 70.3, 5 hours to 7 hours, still a long day. Typically, probably going to be above what you're training at for these long rides and long runs, zone wise. So it's going to put a larger amount of fatigue on you. So if we can go in properly, and then we can have a well executed race because we were kind of topped off. We were feeling good. The recovery on the other side of it will be a little bit quicker. We can just let the central nervous system recuperate, let the muscles recuperate, fill the body back up over a few easy sessions. And then hopefully within a week or so that we can really start to build back into the plan and then continue on towards that A race and that A goal. So that's typically how I structure and make that work for those athletes there. And that, again, same thing as if you were training for a half marathon leading up to your 26.2. At this point now, especially for anyone doing Musselman, Placid, or any of the events, and Maine even coming up 70.3 towards the end of July, is we need to be really visualizing and focusing on race day preparations right now. And that could be from our gear, what we do in transition, how we're packing, what we need, keeping it simple. Hopefully you've made notes over your past races, and even now breaking it into our fueling. I just sent out to the coached athletes today, doing Muscleman, is a blank template of what your 70.3 fueling strategy should look like on race day. It was a blank template all the way from the night before all the way to post race, and they should start to fill that out based off of like how they envision themselves on a properly well-fueled race day. Like if you could script this story of fueling from start to finish and be able to have a wonderful day and take all that in, like break it down and write it out, put it out there first, because then you'll have a map. Hopefully you follow that plan and execute on race day as stated. And then during the post-race recap, we can go back in and say, all right, the morning of, this is what you really wanted to do, but you know what happened? Maybe your stomach was a little sour in the morning. You didn't get your full meal in pre-race, and then see, okay, on the bike, this is what you wanted to take over the course of 56 miles. What did we actually consume? It's likewise with the run, and then that could also now start to tell as well, based on the outcome of the race. Maybe we had a little bonk on the run or something happened or a little cramp. Like we can go back and say, well, it might be because X, Y, and Z was missed, so we need to work on that next time. Or the fueling strategy, we executed it. We still had some issues out there that we need to brush up on. So maybe do we need to adjust the amounts of sodium or the amount of carbs per hour on the bike? And then we can have ourselves execute a better fueling strategy for the 70.3 next time. So that's something that hopefully the athletes are working on. And as I speak to them prior to race day, we're going to go over before the end of the week and kind of see where they're at with all that stuff. And so again, once you have the plan written out, you just start to visualize it. And then basically when race day comes, it almost feels like you've done it already. And now you're going to be able to execute it flawlessly out there on race day. All this just becomes part of your daily business, right? With endurance. If we can take this stress of these race days out of it, like you hired a coach, they're giving you the sessions to do, you're knocking the sessions out. If we think ahead of time and just know exactly what we do and what we prep for transitions, and we just have those things laid out, like I'm a big list maker. For my races, if I was racing 70.3 this weekend, I would pull my list off my fridge down in my gym, and I would say, this is what I need for my race day swim, bike, and run. I'd pack it all out, go over it maybe 2 or 3 times during the week, change anything up based on weather or anything like that, any other outside factors that I may have to deal with. My fueling would be all set up, and that stress is out of it. It's just something that is just driven into memory by now, and it's just, for me, it's something that works over and over and over again. And then as I tweak things over time, I make my list different, I change things up, and I do my own self-assessed post-race recaps where I make notes, and then I go forward and enact those things for future planning. So that's what we got to do with that. Don't forget to check. Last week, I published on the long form content on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, 70.3 Fueling Podcast. I thought it was a great time to get a lot of that information out there. And don't forget, coming forward, hopefully sometime this week, I'm going to put out the full Ironman Fueling Podcast, which is going to be differentiating. Basically, we've talked about the 70.3 fuel plan. Now, what changes for Ironman? There's a few tips and tricks and things that we need to really think about for those full long course Ironman athletes out there. There are some different fueling strategies that we need to consider while we're out there, because it's a much longer day out there. Outside of all of that, a couple little notes that I've just written down over the past week or so while talking to other athletes or other coaches out there is, again, just some more mental motivational stuff. I always like to put something on. I usually have some type of talk with somebody about something. And I got a comment from somebody. It was an athlete that's checking the boxes. They're newer, the last couple months onboarded as a runner. And they simply just stated like, I'm not good at running. And right then and there, putting those words out there into the world. If you say like I'm not good at swimming, I don't like to bike, I don't like to run, whatever it is, there's something out there that you're just not comfortable with. That's usually what it is the more you put it out there and the more you like fester with that out there, the more you think it is reality. But really think about it. If you're a runner, which this person is a runner, and you're out there getting it done and you're out there running 3 or 4 times a week, at least an hour a clip, and you're putting decent times up there. I mean, again, you have to zoom out and look at like the small percentage of people in this world that are even dedicated to some type of endurance plan or running plan that are capable of doing what you're doing. It is such a minute, small amount of people that are dedicated to doing what you're doing. You just happen to be comparing yourself to that very small pool of people. So if you really just think about it, like, don't say that. Like, you're amazing. You're doing it. If you're checking the boxes and you're getting it done, okay, sometimes our progress stagnates for our potential. It depends on a multitude of different factors that, we can spend an entire hour talking about. But if you're able to stay consistent and disciplined, to stick with the plan and be able to get out there and get it done and stay healthy, you're doing awesome and you're great at running. So that's the takeaway on that one. So don't sell yourself short on that. Always, we get to do this. Think about those mantras, like, really think about how blessed we are to be out there, being able to move ourselves and being able to stay healthy with that. Another little comment I got from somebody is, and this was a fun conversation. I actually spoke to this athlete on a call later that week, was they're training for a full-length Ironman, and it's their first Ironman. They've done a couple 70.3s. They've already done one this year. So they're now in this build, this post 70.3 build towards their Ironman event. And they simply, sum and substance, were just like, man, I'm getting bored with training. I kind of laughed a little bit to myself at first because it's a justifiable comment, because this person is super consistent and super disciplined with their training, meaning like they're getting it done. They're swimming, they're biking, they're running, rinse, repeat every week. They're building on their volume. They're adding a little bit of intensity, and week after week after week. They've been at it for weeks. I mean, they've already done a 70.3. So chances are they already had probably a 16-week build at the minimum to that 70.3. Now they're a few weeks past their 70.3. So they've been in this game now for over half a year, 24 weeks probably of training specifically for this race coming up in the fall, this Ironman race. And they're really going to start to peak into these volumes and distances soon. So yeah, sometimes you need this mental reset through these long blocks of training, because it does get a little redundant and repetitive. And unfortunately, that's kind of like what endurance sports is. So we can shake things up a little bit. I'm going to actually put out some stuff on how, when I was training through my Ironman, some tips that I learned from other coaches and athletes at the time, how you can spice up some of these workouts deeper into the plan and things like that. So I'll put that stuff out into my coaching app as well for those Ironman athletes. But how I really got through my long course journeys and things like that is, a lot of it is easier intensities, longer stuff, a lot of zone 2 efforts, long bike rides, long runs on the weekend. During the week is fun because there are some more intense workouts, these interval sessions, tempo sessions. But when you get to the weekend and it's like a grind, like 4 or 5 hour bike ride, like a 2-hour run-ish the next day. How do you get through all that? Hopefully you have some people to train with. That is like super crucial and key, is how you can break that up, is go find some other people that are training, reach out, try and, find a new group or something like that. It's just fun to, just be around other people sometimes, or take your group to a new location, go find some new stuff. I mixed up that year that I did my Ironman, like the places that I was training and the groups that I was training with, going to meet different people, just keeping it fun and interesting. And unfortunately, when the weekends that I kind of had to go solo on it, audiobooks, podcasts, like that for me makes time go by quick. Like I can listen to my same training playlist over and over again. That's usually what I reserve for my short intensity efforts. But for the longer stuff, it's really awesome to just get lost in a book, get lost. Go. You want to learn about something? Download a book about it. That's kind of how I also continued on with the coaching and things. Like I would just download books on coaching and triathlon and running and just listen, and take in as much as I can. And that's kind of how I broke some of that stuff up. So if you ever get bored with your training, jump on. There's so many good podcasts now. You can kind of mix it up on different things and different types of themes out there that you want to listen to. So that's what I got for now. That is week number 28 in 2025. Congratulations to everybody that is out there. Got through the training. Taper time now for a lot of these big races, these July races. So again, control the controllable. Start visualizing your success now. Let's execute on race day, and then race recap it afterwards and see if our visualization came to fruition. So for now, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, keep balancing that life 1 mile at a time, and I'll catch you on the next one.